Holy God, we have come here today and it is a joy to be here, for we are hungry. Help us in these moments to sit quietly to let your love and your mercy and your grace descend upon us and wash over us. Help us in the midst of heat and humidity to feel the cool confidence of your presence. Amen. I always feel a little bit awkward having this nice cool glass of water up here. And as you can tell, every week about this time, I feel dry of mouth and take a swallow, but today it's particularly awkward, so I appreciate you being here on such a hot and sticky day. So, the message that Jesus has in today's gospel lesson is there's bread and there's bread. Perhaps you, like I, are sometimes glad that you get to listen to Jesus' words and pick apart Jesus' teachings without the added pressure of actually being part of the class in Jesus' presence, with the possibility that you're going to be called upon to answer a question or provide an explanation or an example. But the message is there's bread and there's bread. So, for the last week, most of our family, Carol and Amy and I, have been in New Hampshire at a family folk dance, folk music camp. Jesse was off doing things with the Boy Scouts. So the way this works is there's a camp in Lisbon, New Hampshire, or Lyman, New Hampshire. It's a little village that you can't even find. You can try to check the weather. It's not on the computer. Anyway, a little bit south of Littleton, New Hampshire, there's a lovely camp that has been there for about 89 years. It has a long history. It began as a camp for girls from a really posh prep school in Philadelphia, and then for a while it was a Girl Scout camp and a girls riding camp, and now it's run by a family from Rhode Island, and different organizations use the facilities as a base for camps that they are offering. So we were at the family camp that is run by an organization called the Country, Dance, and Song Society. Now, you need to understand that this is a treasure in my life that comes to me because I'm married to Carol Nico, who is a folk dance, folk music, you know that she can sing pretty well, from way back. So I just sort of have been brought along with all of this. But you need to know that what happens is people come from all over the country to this little place in New Hampshire to spend a week learning about folk dance traditions and learning some dances and singing together and having fun and sharing jokes and playing instruments that they can play and singing songs together and all kinds of things. And during the week, the accommodations and the meals and everything are taken care of by the staff of the camp, which is kind of separate from the program, except for that everybody has a job that they have to do while they're there for the week. So my job was dinner prep, which meant that I was chopping vegetables for salads most late afternoons. Anyway, there is always a huge amount of amazingly delicious food. For breakfast, for lunch, for dinner. There's a snack in the mid-morning and a snack in the afternoon, and then there's usually some kind of a party at night after all the dancing and stuff is finished. So there's just a lot of eating, basically. But as good as all that food is, that's not why people are there. That's not why the teachers and the doctors and the information technology people and the business owners and the dog walkers and stand-up comedians and all kinds of people come with their families to be there. As good as all of that food is in the dining hall, it's clear that there's something about the music and the dancing and the community and the sharing and the learning that is also just like food for the people who are there. None of us would go there just to eat 3 or 4 or 5 times a day without the music and the dancing and the singing and the community. All of us, adults, are really struck with wonder as we look at the children who have grown up going to this camp and have embraced music and dance and found ways for that to fit into their lives in different ways and built strong friendships. Some of the dancing and music only happens during this concentrated time in the summer, and for the rest of the year, people are involved with sports and school things and other activities. But the message is there's food and there's food at camp. And that's what Jesus says. There's bread and there's bread. In the gospel lesson, the people come to Jesus because they've heard about this amazing thing that happened when Jesus and his disciples were with a big crowd of people, and they decided that everybody needed to eat, and all of a sudden, from what they heard, thousands of people had a big meal out in the field that day without anybody really planning for it or doing the usual preparation. So now they want to come and see something fantastic like that. And Jesus says that's missing the point. Jesus wants the disciples to understand that he is the living bread. That as much as the disciples are accustomed to working so there'll be enough food on the table when they get there, that there's also bread that never perishes, that satisfies forever. In the letter to the Ephesians, we are, as disciples, encouraged to live a life that's worthy of our calling. Now, we may not all think of ourselves as having a calling, but the reality is we're here, and there's a reason why we're here. We're called here by God, by Jesus Christ, in lots of different ways, in gentle but insistent and persistent ways. We come here because we know that there is a promise here that we can take hold of and take with us out to all the places we will be this week. And that it will comfort and strengthen us, and that we can share it with the people we meet. There's a lot of ways that we calculate the worth of a life. We meet people and we look at what they're wearing. We find out a little bit about where they live and what kinds of possessions they have, or what's their job or their position in the community. Some of us have had the experience of working with an insurance salesperson to figure out the worth of our lives from the perspective of insurance. What it will take to provide for those we want to take care of. But the letter suggests that there is something more to think about. There's worth, and there's worth. The life that's worthy of our calling is one that recognizes that we are called to be very particular people as we follow Jesus. We are called to be people who are gentle and loving and truthful and honest and humble. We are called to recognize that among us are many gifts that can be shared and acted out and used for the benefit of all. Gifts that can help us when we bump up against our limits or our shortcomings. There are gifts around us that can help us find our way. We come here today because we're hungry. Probably most of us ate breakfast this morning. So there's hunger and there's hunger. And there's bread. And there's bread. So I'm glad that we're here together today to give thanks with joy for the calling that is ours, the community that we're part of, the gifts that we have to share, and the faith that's so evident around us and within us. I pray that we can take the promise that we will celebrate around this table out to share as we go through this week. There's bread. And there's bread. We have interesting discussions sometimes at deacons' meetings about this bread and this celebration of communion. We all of us recognize that it's bread, but it's also bread. It's living bread. And so, when we finish with church on Communion Sunday, nobody takes the bread home and sticks it back in the refrigerator to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Usually we find people who want to help to eat some of the leftover bread, and then we make sure that we take it, and lots of times it's fed to birds as a gift. When we talk about taking communion to church members who aren't able to be here with us, we think about what is it that helps us in that moment when we recognize that we're together with a fellow church member and we have bread, but also living bread. And we have juice, but also the cup of salvation. Let us receive these gifts and go forth to share in a life worthy of our call.